Welcome to the Grok Shop and part 4 of my series on Universal Remote Controls. In this video I'm going to show how to install an extender and also configure the extender and crack the egg on using some of what the extenders are capable of doing. Okay, so what is this extender business anyway, right? The extenders are basically just like what they sound like. They extend the capabilities of your remote, and some smart guys have figured out how to do that and made them available to us for free. So there's different extenders for different remotes. Again, I'll be demoing on the OAR USB 04G, also known as the URC 6540. As always, I'll be providing the links. Version 1.04 is the latest for this remote. We'll go ahead and download that now. Notice the note here that the extender can be used with or without RMIR. But seriously, using it without RMIR, it doesn't exercise the full capabilities, and it's a little more difficult for most things. So I would definitely recommend using RMIR. So after downloading, go ahead and extract everything into the RMIR folder with a new folder called Extender, and extract everything into that folder. So amazingly, the extender also comes with some pretty decent documentation. It's not perfect, but it's pretty good. I've highlighted some areas here to talk about. Note that this is a port from the URC 6440, so if you have that remote, you can kind of play along pretty well here. Only caveat there being this one has the US code database. The list macro button now becomes shift and X shift, which gives you 3 times as many buttons as you had before. Also, to do the list functionality, you press and hold, and the shift X shift is single press and double press. Functionality is only extended, nothing is lost, and if you use RMIR, you need to have version 2.03 build 8 or later. I won't be covering sections 5 through 10, which is the non-RMIR use of the extender. So here's the feature list. One of the best features is the number of devices supported. It goes from 4 to 12. The tripling of the number of available buttons with shift and X shift, as I touched on briefly before. Macro nesting and signal duration configuration. And we now have the ability to put macros on device and combo buttons or activity buttons. And I'll actually be showing how to use this here in a little bit. Now I have long and short key press on power buttons, with the long key press being power signal for all devices on the activity. We also get some new potential problems like infinite loops when you nest your macros. I can use the pause button to break out of that. Note that with the extender installed, you can no longer use the simpleset.com website, but that's not really an issue since you have RMIR and it's really good. So the install procedures in section 2.2, I had some problems with this procedure. For one thing, they call out step 1 in here and there are no step numbers. Step 2, no step numbers again. There's just dots. I assume the first dot step 1, second dot step 2, but I still had problems. But the idea is you're supposed to be able to extend your existing RMIR configuration. But when I tried to do it using this install extender method, you'll see the error I kept getting here. So I did it my way. First thing I did was I made backups of all my existing devices. I took this extender 104 bin file, renamed it to settings.bin, and then just copied it directly onto the remote drive. Then in RMIR, I just downloaded from the remote. Next, I decided to go ahead and save it, saving it as settings.rmir, reflecting it's the same as the generic bin file that I loaded on to the remote. And now finally, I was able to do the install extender step using the hex file provided. So now I decided to go ahead and upload to the remote, even though it's really not necessary at this point since I've got more changes to make and I'll be uploading again later. Next, I went ahead and started restoring the devices I previously backed up. Keep in mind at this point the remote is extended. It's just empty, and we're going ahead and populating the RMIR config for a later upload. Now go ahead and save this RMIR config with the same name as before, but underscore extended. So I'll go ahead and reset my volume punch throughs, which tells it to control the volume through the TV for those 3 devices, and then re-upload. And since I had no macros, now I'm back to where I was before I started everything, except I'm now extended. Now, several times while working with this tool, I had the remote brick on me. If that happens, not to fear, you just take the bin file labeled like this, settings reset OAR USB 04G extender 104, rename it to settings.bin, copy it to the remote, and then you can re-upload your RMIR file, which hopefully you saved. I'm not sure if the problem was me pulling the cable out too soon, or if there's a bug in the software. Of course, I think it's a bug, but it's free. It's hard to complain. So one of the great things about this extender, I think, is this ability to assign macros to the combo buttons or activity buttons like watch TV, watch movie, because I like the idea of being able to just hit one button and have it turn everything on, put the remote in the right combination mode, and switch my AV receiver to the right input. And well, you could assign macros to these buttons before. They were operated before the combo mode happened, and it didn't work right. It didn't really work well at all. But now it does, and one caveat to getting it to work right is you have to really use discrete on function, because if you use the toggle and you hit your combo button again, it's going to turn everything off, and that's not really what you want. I think you want to use the power button for that. So what I did was I set up these phantom buttons, and I'll show in a minute how I configured those to use discrete on. And other than that, it works pretty good. And you can see I'm setting up the macro functionality to turn the AV receiver on, which is audio, turn the TV on, turn the set-top box on, and hit the red button on audio, which I have assigned to SAT. That's my SAT input. And then DC restore. Now DC restore is a special function that basically puts the remote back into the same state it was in before the macro began. And that means basically put it back into the right combo mode. So now I'll do the same thing for watch movie, which I have set up for my Kodi. So basically it's the same macro, except instead of set-top box, I'll do the DVD, which I have assigned to turn on my PC, which is running Kodi. And same thing there with the phantom button. And then of course on the audio, I'll select the proper input, which I have as green. Green is assigned to game, which is my audio input from my Kodi box. And otherwise it's the same thing. I hit one button and everything comes on, my Kodi comes up, and it's ready to go. So about these phantom buttons, at the bottom of the remote layout, you see these extra buttons. Those are the phantom buttons. Of course, they don't really exist, but you can assign them just like any other button that does. This is where I set my discrete power on and discrete power off functionality. So there's no button I can hit in reality to do that, but I can assign those phantom buttons to any macro and get the functionality that way. Okay, so the next thing I wanted to do is set up a macro to tell my Kodi to turn on party mode. So I used a device-specific macro for that, and I assigned shift 1 to do the macro. So basically the macro tells Kodi to go to the music menu, which I have assigned to Shift 0, and then I know from there, if I just hit the right arrow combination, I can get to party mode. Now, there's probably another way to do that, but this way worked pretty good for me. The DSMs, or device-specific macros, are set up under the Special Functions tab, as you can see there. So while DSMs existed already before the extender, what didn't exist is Shift 0 or Shift anything. So it really expands the possibilities by having that there. So since I use FLIRC, or FLIRC, for my Kodi IR reception, I knew I just needed some command to assign the shortcut to get to the music menu. So I found this media play command in the Samsung TV device that I cloned off to control my Kodi, and I just added that function and assigned that function to Shift 0, and that's how I get the music menu shortcut. So that's pretty much the basics of the extender. Of course, it's very extensible, and you can put a huge number of macros on if you want. And there's additional functionality that we didn't get into. Of course, you can check out the docs for all that. But as far as the basic intro to the extender goes, that's how it's done. Don't forget to upload to your remote when you're done. And thanks for watching. I hope this helps out on how to do all of this, at least get you going. That probably concludes what I'm doing for the Universal Remotes for now, although there could be additional videos later, especially in regards to Kodi.